This is the Player Position Podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
In 49 BC, Julius Caesar led his army to the banks of the Rubicon, a small river that marked the boundary between Italy and Gaul. Caesar knew Roman law forbade a general from leading his army out of the province to which he was assigned. By crossing the Rubicon, he would violate that law. "The die is cast," he said, wading in. That act of defiance sparked a 3-year civil war that ultimately left Julius Caesar the undisputed ruler of the Roman world. Centuries later, it also inspired English speakers to adopt 2 popular sayings, crossing the Rubicon and the die is cast. Rubicon has been used in English as the name of a significant figurative boundary since at least the early 1600s. Thank you so much to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary for that little history lesson. Here at the end of Q3 in 2021, we can find plenty of English words and phrases that describe irreversible moments. Crossroads, crunch time, sink or swim, match point, high noon. I'm no history buff, but I do have a decent understanding of human nature. I suspect Caesar experienced his share of should I or shouldn't I moments as he calculated the risks leading up to crossing the Rubicon. Every calculated risk comes with a point of no return. You're either going to move forward or you're not. What and how you think about the risk at hand determines which answer you choose. Recently, I watched a documentary film on Amazon Prime called Chasing Niagara, and in it starred a man named Rafa Ortiz. Now, Rafa Ortiz had a dream of kayaking over Niagara Falls. This was back in 2011. Kayaking over Niagara Falls is illegal. And there are a lot of people in place to prevent folks like Rafa, who get this idea fixed in his mind about kayaking over the falls or swimming over the falls or going in a barrel over the falls. And Rafa knew he would face a moment of truth when he kayaked over Niagara Falls. Now, ideally, he would live to tell about it. I'm not going to spoil for you the film in case you want to check it out. Now, this is unlike Jesse Sharp, who went over the lip of Niagara Falls in 1990 in a kayak and was never seen again. Jesse Sharp didn't live, but he took a calculated risk, and one of the potential outcomes of kayaking over Niagara Falls is you die. So there it is. I know that's an extreme example. In some ways, the pandemic of 2020 is another extreme example. It will most likely be remembered as a turning point in global history, one full of calculated risks at all levels when we look back on decisions that were made both at a social level, I call it the 30,000-foot view level, and then at the personal level as well. Certainly for anyone who contracted COVID, served on the front line in hospitals during the pandemic, and or lost someone to COVID, these past 18 months have shown us in real time what can happen when one choice is made over another. And sometimes you can do everything right, guys, and you still come out on the losing side. So, There's definitely some gray area here. Now, the ongoing war that's raging in America right now about wearing a mask and getting vaccinated showcases how calculated risks influence personal decisions and shape culture. For millions of Americans, the die is cast, and there are 2 general camps here. There's the camp of those who refuse to get the vaccine, they refuse to wear a mask in public. And then there's the camp of those who are lining up for their 3rd booster shot, and they wear a mask everywhere they go. Members of each camp are calculating their risks related to what they believe is true. Each is wading into their respective river with the intention to cross, and nothing's going to stop them. I'm sure you have seen your fair share of videos on social media, perhaps news programs talking about both sides. It's just, I'm just going to say it, it's been a shit show. And it doesn't matter which camp you're in, it's just been crazy. Now, for centuries, two overarching paradigms have governed the way humans explain why the world is the way it is. There's the science, and then there's the theology. Science is a relatively new kid on the block. Theology was a big driver for centuries. Prior to theology, we had mythology, and we are living right now in an age where science is it's where more people turn, or a growing number. I don't have stats. I honestly can't say. I have to take that back. I don't know if more people believe in science than they do in religion, or the idea that there is, a benevolent being up there who's watching over and controlling everything. The point I want to make here is numerous variables play into why one person thinks the way they do while another thinks completely differently. And sometimes these people are part of the same family. I've read stories, sad stories to me at least, of families being divided over things related to COVID and the emergency laws that were enacted in order to protect the population. There are families who do not speak, people within families who aren't speaking to one another, who refuse to see one another. And man, that breaks my heart. It really does. But this points to the power of belief and how it drives so much of what we do. So as we strive to discover more about ourselves and our place in the world as each day, each week, month, and year pass, we're likely going to seek guidance from sources beyond ourselves. Within the context of the COVID pandemic, scientific evidence continues to mount that being vaxxed significantly reduces one's risk of dying from COVID should one get sick from it. Meanwhile, the conspiracy theories that mushroomed across social media about what was happening during early days in the pandemic have been consistently refuted. And there'll be a link to some of these data points. If you go over to my sister site, MaryLouKaiser.com, and you scroll down to my blog, you can find the links to some of these conspiracy theories that were so rampant in the early days of the pandemic. Regardless of which camp someone belongs to, small acts of defiance give those committing them a sense of control. So people are like, I refuse to wear a mask, or I am not getting vaxxed. They see that as a way of controlling their environment and keeping themselves safe. It tamps down the chaos unfolding around them. It explains the unexplainable. And people who are, again, the other camp, they're wearing their mask, or they're wearing a mask and a face shield and a hazmat suit, and they were the first ones to get vaccinated. They believe that this is a way of controlling their environment and staying safe. Now, despite the warning signs plastered along the metaphorical banks of swollen rivers that we all come up against them from time to time, some people choose to wade in deeper. They throw caution to the wind. They're like, I'm going in, even when the law forbids them to do it or to do something, like in Caesar's case, or general consensus strongly suggests you don't do something, as in the case of airlines requiring passengers to wear masks. Still, people do it anyway. I love referencing Lin-Manuel Miranda's hit musical Hamilton when I'm looking for something to support an idea I have. And there's a song in that show called History Has Its Eyes on You. And I'm going to read you an excerpt. This is Miranda's George Washington singing. And he sings, I was younger than you are now when I was given my first command. I led my men straight into a massacre. I witnessed their deaths firsthand. I made every mistake and felt the shame rise in me. And even now I lie awake, knowing history has its eyes on me.
Let me tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? I know that we can win. I know that greatness lies in you. But remember, from here on in, history has its eyes on.
I have zero doubt that history has its eyes on us right now. At this moment, we will look back on this strange time of the COVID pandemic, and we will apply new information, new breakthroughs, new insights as a way of explaining what happened and why. We don't have those yet, so we can't use them. All we can use is what we know right now. Some people in the long run will be recognized as brave warriors who never gave up the fight to mitigate the devastating effects of chaos and confusion left behind in their wakes. It won't be easy or necessarily fast. I think we're going to be unraveling from the pandemic for quite some time, but it's possible to be optimistic about what's ahead despite the current challenges that we face. Bigger questions, of course, will persist. Where do we draw the line between personal choice versus social responsibility? Do we cross the Rubicon even when authorities tell us not to? At what point is it too late to turn around? Calculated risks. You may be facing one right now, thinking about one right now, whether to take it or not. And it's not my place to tell you either yes or no. At the end of the day, you've got to weigh both options. You're going to be standing at the edges of the Rubicon, and you're either going to wade in and go for it because you reach that point of no return, or you're going to back off, retreat, and wait. One of the things that's popular online, I'm sure you've caught glimpses of this. It's hard not to see it, especially if you spend any time on the socials. There's a lot of memes that go around about don't wait, get started now. You know, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time to plant a tree is today. So whatever it is that you're thinking about, these are some of the variables that are going to come into play as you calculate the risks related to perhaps leaving a job and starting a business, or moving to a different city, or leaving a relationship that no longer serves you, or trying to start a new relationship. Is it time? Are you in a place where you're feeling ready to invest in what it takes to be in a partnership? When I got COVID, a breakthrough case of the Delta variant in August, that changed everything for me. And I had to start looking at what was next. You know, what's next on my plate? What do I want to be investing my time in as I move forward? And I thought I had things lined up, but in all fairness, the pandemic did shift things around for me. And then on top of it, despite doing everything right, I still came down with the Delta variant, and it shook my world, guys. I haven't talked about it here, but it really rattled my cage. I was afraid. I felt like I was dying. It was brutal. And then on top of it, my mother, who was immunocompromised, also contracted COVID. She was the first one to have it in the house. Not everybody got it, thank goodness, but enough of us did, and it altered the way we think about things. I still wear my mask in public. I know a lot of people don't, but I still do. I see people wearing masks all the time, and I see lots of people who don't. And again, here in America, the big debate really is about personal choice and personal freedom. And I think those two concepts are on, it's an interesting, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of noise on social about personal freedom and the concept of freedom as it pertains to the American way of life. And I'll explore that in a future episode. I'm still noodling my thoughts around that. But for now, again, I encourage you to use critical thinking when you are considering a calculated risk, perhaps not as extreme as Rafa Ortiz and kayaking over Niagara Falls, and perhaps not as extreme as crossing the Rubicon. You don't have an army behind you necessarily, but metaphorically you might. And once you wade in, that is the point of no return. It's high noon, it's match point, it's crunch time, right? So, as always, team, I'm here to uplift, encourage, inspire, and give you something to think about. And I hope that I achieved that today. I've got more amazing conversations ready to drop this month. If you didn't check out the conversations I had back in September, go back and listen to them. Some amazing people out there doing incredible work. And each one has some big takeaway for you. I don't know what that takeaway is, but I know every time I listen back to my conversations, I'm absolutely blown away at what my guests share. So with that said, team, I wish you the best going forward in the rest of your day. And remember, it is always a great day to get out there and play your position. This is Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Got a great key offensive strategy you like to share? Write to us at coach@pyppodcast.com or on Twitter, use #PYP and let us know how you're running your ball into the end zone for those game-winning touchdowns.